The unexpected mission. Ryan Carter woke up with a pounding headache. His vision was blurry. The air smelled strange, like metal and burnt wood. He tried to move but felt something heavy pressing on his chest. With a groan, he pushed himself up. His body ached. As his vision cleared, he realized he wasn't on his ship anymore. The sky above was dark green, with two suns low on the horizon. Strange purple trees stretched into the distance. His ship. Where was his ship? Ryan turned, his heart racing. Behind him, a pile of burning metal lay twisted and broken. His ship had crashed. But how? He didn't remember anything. Suddenly, gunfire. A sharp crack echoed through the trees. Ryan spun toward the sound. It was close. Too close. He crouched low, scanning the area. Then he saw her. A woman. No, an alien. She was running toward him, her golden armor shining even in the dim light. Her long silver hair flowed behind her. Her face was sharp, regal, like a queen. Behind her, 3 armed figures in black cloaks chased her, firing strange blue energy blasts. Ryan's instincts kicked in. He grabbed a piece of metal, a broken ship panel, and used it as a shield. The woman ran straight toward him, her golden eyes wide with panic. She collapsed at his feet. Ryan dropped to one knee. "Are you hurt?" She gasped for air. "Help me, or we all die." Ryan barely had time to process her words before another energy blast flew past his head. He ducked, grabbing a pistol from his belt. Only 4 bullets left. The assassins closed in. Their black armor gleamed under the green sky. Ryan didn't know who they were, but he knew one thing. They were trying to kill her. And for some reason, they had also shot down his ship. Ryan fired. Bang. One assassin dropped. The others scattered, taking cover. The woman clutched his arm. "We must run." Ryan hesitated. He never ran from a fight. But he had no ammo left. More figures appeared in the distance, reinforcements. Too many. Ryan cursed under his breath. "Fine. Let's go." He grabbed the woman's arm and pulled her to her feet. She winced but ran beside him. They dashed into the alien forest, moving fast. Branches scratched at Ryan's arms. The ground was uneven, covered in glowing blue moss. The woman ran with surprising speed, despite her injuries. "Who are they?" Ryan panted. She looked at him with fierce golden eyes. "Assassins, sent to kill me before I can reach my people." Ryan glanced back. The assassins were still chasing them. "Damn it. Who are you?" he asked. She took a deep breath. "I am Queen Syra of the Zephyrian Empire." Ryan almost tripped. "A queen? Great, just my luck," he muttered. But then Syra grabbed his arm and said something that made his blood run cold. "Human, if I die, your people die too." Ryan stopped in his tracks. "What?" No time for answers. Behind them, the assassins raised their weapons. Ryan grabbed Syra and dove behind a fallen tree as blaster fire rained down. He peeked over the log. They were surrounded. "No escape," Syra whispered. Ryan clenched his jaw. His heart pounded. He looked at the queen. Her golden armor was cracked, her breath shaky, but her eyes were full of fire. He didn't know why, but he believed her. "Stay down," he ordered. Ryan picked up a broken alien weapon from the ground. He didn't know how it worked, but there was only one way to find out. He aimed. He fired. A blue energy blast struck one of the assassins, knocking him back. Ryan didn't stop. He jumped over the log, dodging bullets, rolling, firing. He moved fast, taking down 2 more. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a sharp whistle in the air. Ryan turned. His eyes widened. A metal spear flew straight at him. He barely had time to react. Something heavy slammed into him. Syra pushed him aside. The spear missed his heart by inches, but Syra screamed. Ryan caught her as she fell. Blood ran down her side. The assassins were still coming. Ryan tightened his grip on the alien gun. His breathing was heavy. He had two choices: fight to the death or run. He looked at the Queen. She was still alive, but barely. Ryan cursed under his breath. He hated running, but she had saved his life. And if she was telling the truth, saving her meant saving Earth. Ryan threw Xira's arm over his shoulder and ran into the unknown. This was just the beginning. Hunted like animals. Ryan Carter's boots pounded against the damp, moss-covered ground. His breath was ragged, his muscles burned, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Queen Xira's arm was slung over his shoulder, her body weak from blood loss. Every few steps, she stumbled, but Ryan held her up. Behind them, the assassins were gaining. The forest was dense with thick, twisting trees, their leaves glowing faint blue in the dim light. Strange insect-like creatures buzzed in the air, their wings humming. The ground pulsed beneath Ryan's feet, alive. This planet was unlike any he had seen before. He could hear the assassins, fast-moving shadows weaving through the trees. They weren't human, and they sure as hell weren't normal soldiers. They were hunters. Ryan gritted his teeth. He needed a plan. Xira gasped, barely keeping up. They won't stop. They never stop. Yeah, Ryan muttered. Neither do I. Ahead, the forest opened into a river, wide, dark, and fast-moving. It was the only way forward, but something felt wrong. The water was too still, too quiet. Ryan paused, scanning the area. Then, the silence broke. A deafening roar split the air. Ryan barely had time to react before the water exploded upward. Something massive, a beast with 6 eyes and jagged, armored plates covering its body, rose from the depths. Its mouth was wide, lined with sharp, uneven teeth, a river predator. Ryan cursed. He had two choices: stay and fight the assassins, take his chances with the monster. Neither option was good. Behind him, the assassins broke through the trees. Their leader, a tall, hooded figure, lifted a glowing blade. No time. Ryan grabbed Xira and jumped. Cold water crashed around him, dragging him under. The current was strong, pulling him deeper. Xira's weight made it harder to swim. A shadow moved beneath them. The creature was coming. Ryan kicked hard, his lungs burning. He reached for Xira, pulling her toward the surface, just as they broke through the water. Boom! Something slammed into Ryan's leg, pulling him down again. He thrashed, trying to break free. His fingers found something, a jagged metal shard floating in the water, debris from his ship. He grabbed it, twisted, and stabbed downward. The beast let out a muffled roar. Its grip loosened. Ryan kicked hard, breaking free. He grabbed Xira again, and with one final push, they reached the riverbank. Ryan dragged them both onto land, coughing, gasping for air. His body ached. His leg was bleeding. But the assassins weren't behind them anymore. Ryan looked back at the river. The 6-eyed beast had found new prey. The assassins were trapped in the water. One of them screamed as the creature dragged him under. The others tried to swim away, but the monster was too fast. Ryan didn't wait to see what happened next. He turned to Xira. She was barely conscious, her golden armor cracked, her breathing shallow. Ryan shook her. Hey, stay with me. We're not dead yet. Her eyes fluttered open. We must keep moving. Ryan sighed. Yeah, I know. The river had bought them time, but not enough. The real hunters were still out there. Hours later, a new threat. Ryan and Xira moved deeper into the forest. The trees grew taller, the ground harder, the air thick with mist. Ryan's body ached, but he kept moving. He had to. Xira leaned against him, her body weak. She was losing too much blood. They needed shelter. Fast. Then, a light in the distance. Ryan narrowed his eyes. It wasn't natural. A fire. He moved closer, creeping through the undergrowth. Then he saw them, a group of alien raiders. They sat around a fire, their weapons stacked nearby. Their ship, a small rusted hovercraft, was parked beside them. Ryan's heart pounded. He recognized the symbols on their armor. Criminals. Pirates. But criminals meant one thing: supplies. Ryan turned to Exira. "We're stealing their ship." She blinked at him, weak but alert. "You are insane." Ryan smirked. "Yeah, but it's a good plan." Exira took a slow breath. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. "Then let's steal a ship." Enemy at every turn. The fire flickered against the metal hull of the raider's ship, casting eerie shadows on the twisted trees. Ryan crouched behind a fallen log, his pulse steady but his mind racing. 3 raiders sat around the fire, laughing in a deep, guttural alien tongue. Their weapons, 2 energy rifles and a long serrated blade, were stacked against a crate nearby. Exira leaned against the log beside him, her breath slow, but controlled. She was weak from blood loss, but her golden eyes were sharp. "We need their ship," Ryan whispered. Iran nodded, but her expression darkened. "They won't give it willingly." Ryan smirked. "They don't have to." He scanned the area. The hovercraft was old and rusted, but it looked functional. The problem? It was guarded. A 4th raider stood near the entrance, his massive form blocking the way. Ryan needed a plan. Fast. Then, something caught his eye. A fuel canister, half hidden near the fire. He turned to Exira. "Can you still throw?" Her golden eyes narrowed. "I am not helpless, human." "Good." Ryan pulled a small rock from the ground and handed it to her. "Hit that canister when I say." Exira studied it for a moment, then gave him a sharp nod. Ryan took a breath, then moved. The ambush. Ryan slipped through the shadows, staying low. The raiders didn't notice. They were too busy laughing, drinking some foul-smelling liquid from metal cups. Closer. Ryan crouched behind the weapons crate, almost there. Then, a snap. Ryan froze. Beneath his boot, a twig cracked like gunfire in the silence. The raiders stiffened. One of them growled in their alien tongue. He reached for his weapon. "Now!" Ryan shouted. Exira threw the rock. It hit the fuel canister dead center. Boom! The explosion lit up the camp. Fire and smoke burst outward. The raiders screamed as the shockwave threw them backward. Ryan lunged forward. He grabbed a rifle from the crate, turned, and fired. 2 shots. One raider collapsed instantly. Another scrambled for his blade. Ryan didn't give him the chance. 1 clean shot to the chest. Exira moved like lightning, snatching the long serrated blade. She spun, slashing the last raider across the arm. He roared in pain and staggered back. Ryan raised his rifle, but before he could fire, the ground shook. A deep metallic thud-thud-thud echoed through the forest. Ryan's stomach dropped. The assassins were here. The assassins arrive. The last raider, bleeding but alive, grinned. "You are dead," he rasped in broken English. Ryan turned. Red lights blinked through the trees. Shadows moved. Too many. The assassins had found them. Ryan cursed and grabbed Exira's arm. "Move." They sprinted toward the hovercraft. The guard raider at the entrance had recovered. He lunged forward, swinging a metal staff. Ryan barely dodged. The staff crashed into the dirt, sending a shockwave of energy. Too strong. Ryan lifted his rifle, but the raider grabbed it and yanked it away. Ryan rolled back, drew his knife, and slashed. The blade cut across the raider's arm. He roared in pain, swinging wildly. Ryan ducked, too slow. The next hit slammed into his ribs, sending him flying backward. Pain shot through his body. The raider charged, but Exira was already there. She spun the serrated blade, moving fast despite her wounds. 1 clean strike. The raider fell, blood pooling at his feet. Ryan groaned, pushing himself up. "Remind me never to make you mad." Zyra smirked. "Get in the ship, human." The escape, or so they thought. Ryan jumped into the hovercraft's cockpit. The controls were alien, but he had flown worse. He flipped switches, pressed buttons. Nothing. Zyra's voice came from behind. "What's wrong?" Ryan gritted his teeth. "Ship's locked." Zyra swore in her language. "We need a key." Ryan turned. The last raider, the one she had slashed, was crawling away. A small metal device was clutched in his fingers. Ryan jumped out and grabbed the raider's collar. "Key," he growled. The raider laughed. Blood dripped from his lips. Too late. Ryan's eyes flicked up. The assassins had reached the camp. 12 of them. Their leader stepped forward, tall, wrapped in black armor. His voice was low, mechanical. "Give us the queen, and we will spare you." Ryan's grip tightened on his knife. "Yeah, see, I don't believe you." The assassin leader raised a hand signal. The others aimed their weapons. No escape. Zyra met Ryan's gaze. For the first time since they met, her eyes showed fear. Ryan took a slow breath. His fingers curled around his blade. If they were going to die, he would make damn sure they didn't go down easy. Then, boom. Something huge crashed through the trees. The ground trembled. The assassins stumbled back. Ryan's eyes widened. A massive creature, taller than a building, with black armored skin and glowing yellow eyes, emerged from the forest. It roared, shaking the sky. And then, it charged. The Queen's secret. The ground trembled as the massive alien beast roared, its glowing yellow eyes locking onto the group of warriors below. Ryan barely had time to react before chaos erupted. The assassins turned, their dark armor gleaming under the alien sky as they opened fire on the creature. Blazing blue energy bolts streaked across the air, slamming into the monster's thick hide. It barely flinched. With a furious shriek, the beast lunged, smashing its colossal claw into the ground. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. Ryan grabbed Zyra and dove behind the hovercraft, shielding her from the flying debris. The assassins weren't so lucky. The sheer force of the monster's attack sent 3 of them flying. Ryan didn't waste a second. This was their chance. He grabbed Zyra's wrist. "Now's our shot. We're getting on that damned ship." Zyra, still weak from blood loss, barely nodded. Ryan sprinted toward the raider's body, the one clutching the key to the ship. He slid across the dirt, grabbing the metal device from the dying alien's hands. But as soon as he stood, a blade was at his throat. Ryan froze. The assassin leader loomed over him, his glowing red visor staring coldly. "Hand it over," the assassin growled, his voice like grinding metal. Ryan's fingers tightened around the key. His heart pounded. Then, Zyra moved. With surprising speed, she lunged forward, driving her serrated blade into the assassin's side. The assassin staggered, releasing his grip. Ryan didn't hesitate. He twisted free and punched the assassin across the helmet. The impact barely affected the armored warrior, but it was enough. Ryan dashed back toward the hovercraft. Zyra limped after him. "Get us off this planet." Ryan slammed the key into the hovercraft's ignition. For a second, nothing happened. Then, the ship roared to life. The engines flared, lifting the hovercraft off the ground just as the massive alien beast crashed down again, crushing the last few assassins beneath its massive claws. Ryan yanked the controls. The ship rocketed upward. The ground below disappeared into the alien mist. They were finally in the air. The chase through the skies. Ryan gripped the controls, forcing the hovercraft through the thick clouds. The ship rattled, the old engines struggling to keep up. But something didn't feel right. Zyra sat beside him, holding her side, her breathing shallow. "They will not stop hunting us." Ryan glanced at her. "Who are they, really? Why are they trying to kill you? Zaira's gaze was distant. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she whispered, "Because of what I carry inside me." Ryan frowned. "Inside you?" Before she could answer, a warning light flashed on the ship's dashboard. "Incoming threat detected." Ryan cursed. He jerked the controls, veering the ship sideways as a sleek black vessel appeared behind them. The assassins had a ship, and they were coming. Blue energy bolts streaked through the sky. The hovercraft shook violently as a blast hit the right wing. Smoke trailed behind them. Ryan gritted his teeth. "Hold on." He dove the ship straight down. The assassin's vessel followed, firing relentlessly. The air screamed past them as they plunged toward a jagged mountain range. Ryan twisted the controls, weaving between the sharp cliffs. But the enemy pilot was good. Zaira's voice was tight. "We cannot outrun them." Ryan's jaw clenched. "Then we need to outsmart them." His eyes flicked to the fuel gauge, almost empty. His mind raced. Then, an idea. Ryan turned to Zaira. "How good are you with ship weapons?" Her golden eyes hardened. "Better than you." Ryan smirked. "That's what I was hoping to hear." He flipped a switch, activating the hovercraft's rear-mounted plasma turret. Zaira pulled herself into the gunner's seat. The assassin ship closed in. Ryan twisted the ship into a hard left turn, an impossible maneuver. The enemy pilot followed, right into their trap. Zaira fired. A direct hit. The assassin's ship erupted into flames. It spiraled out of control, slamming into the mountains below. Ryan exhaled sharply. "Damn, that was close." Zaira leaned back in her seat, exhaustion in her eyes. "It is not over yet." Ryan didn't like how serious she sounded. "What aren't you telling me?" She hesitated, then finally said, "I carry the key to an ancient power. One that could either save my people or destroy them." Ryan stared at her. "And now the assassins know I'm helping you." Zaira met his gaze. "Yes, and that means you are now a target." Ryan ran a hand through his damp hair. "Great, just what I needed." Before either of them could say more, another warning light flashed. Something massive was ahead. Ryan squinted. Through the thinning clouds, he saw it, a colossal warship hovering in the sky like a sleeping giant. And on its hull, the symbol of the Zephyrian Empire. Zaira's expression darkened. "We are not safe yet." The final betrayal. The Zephyrian warship loomed in the sky like a dark omen, its colossal silhouette blotting out the twin suns. It wasn't just a battleship. It was a floating fortress. Ryan Carter tightened his grip on the hovercraft's controls. Every instinct in his body told him this was a trap. Zaira, slumped in the co-pilot's seat, let out a slow breath. She was still bleeding, her golden armor cracked, but her voice was steady. "They found me," she murmured. Ryan shot her a look. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Zaira didn't answer. A deep mechanical voice crackled through the ship's radio. "Unidentified craft, power down your engines and prepare for docking. You are in Zephyrian airspace." Ryan exhaled. "Guess we don't have much of a choice." Zaira gave him a sharp look. "We always have a choice." Ryan wasn't sure about that. Fuel was low. Weapons were shot. If they ran, they wouldn't get far. He flipped the auto-dock sequence. The hovercraft shuddered as the warship's magnetic clamps locked onto them. The ship was pulling them in. Ryan's gut twisted. Something wasn't right. Docking Bay 17. The unwelcome welcome. As soon as the hovercraft settled in the warship's docking bay, armed soldiers surrounded it. Tall figures clad in sleek black and gold Zephyrian armor pointed their energy rifles at the ship. Their faces were hidden behind mirrored visors. Ryan flexed his fingers near his holster. This wasn't a rescue. A moment later, the ramp lowered with a hiss. Zaira stepped forward first, her posture straight despite her injuries. Ryan followed, keeping a wary eye on the guards. A single figure stepped forward. He was tall, his armor more elaborate than the others, a high-ranking officer. His voice was cold. "Queen Zyra, you were presumed dead." Zyra's expression didn't change. "Clearly, I am not." The officer ignored her tone. His eyes flicked to Ryan. "And the human?" Ryan smirked. "Nice to meet you too." The officer didn't react. "You will come with us." Ryan hated being ordered around, but one look at the energy rifles told him he didn't have a choice. With a silent glance, he and Sarah followed the soldiers deeper into the warship. The throne room and the betrayal. The hallway leading to the throne chamber was massive. Ornate golden pillars, intricate carvings of ancient battles, and high-arched ceilings. Ryan whistled. "Fancy." Zyra ignored him. Her face was unreadable, but her hands were clenched. Ryan had seen enough battlefields to recognize the look. She was expecting a fight. The doors slid open. Inside, a group of Zephyrian nobles stood waiting. At the center was a man with piercing silver eyes and long dark robes. Zyra's jaw tightened. General Vale. Ryan felt the air shift. The tension in the room was heavy, too heavy. Vale stepped forward, his gaze cold. "You have caused quite the disturbance, my queen." Ira lifted her chin. "I did what I had to do." Vale tilted his head. "And yet you returned to us with a human mercenary." His gaze flicked to Ryan. "Tell me, Captain Carter, why would a human risk his life for an alien queen?" Ryan smirked. "Maybe I have a thing for danger." Vale wasn't amused. Then his expression darkened. "You should not have returned." Zyra's entire body went rigid. Ryan's instincts screamed. He reached for his pistol, but too late. The soldiers turned their rifles on Zyra. Ryan cursed under his breath. Betrayal. Zyra's voice was calm, but Ryan could hear the anger beneath it. "You side with the assassins." Val's lips curled into a smile. "You were meant to die on that planet." Ryan tensed. He had seen this before. Corrupt generals, power-hungry rulers, and rigged political plays. This was no different. "Why?" Zyra demanded. Vale stepped closer, his silver eyes gleaming. "Because peace with the humans is a weakness. You were willing to surrender our empire's power for diplomacy." His voice lowered. "And that cannot be allowed." Ryan swore. "Of course. A power struggle." Zyra stared him down. "You cannot kill me. The people will. We'll believe you died a hero." Vale finished smoothly. "Martyrdom is a powerful tool." The guards closed in. Ryan met Zyra's gaze. No words were needed. They had to fight their way out, escape or die trying. Ryan moved first. With lightning reflexes, he grabbed one of the guards, twisted the rifle, and fired point blank. Boom! The blast sent 2 soldiers flying. Zyra was already moving, disarming another guard with a brutal kick. The throne room erupted into chaos. Ryan dove behind a pillar as energy blasts rained down. He peeked out, firing back. 1, 2, 3 guards down. Zyra fought like a warrior queen. She moved fast, using her blade to cut through the attackers with deadly precision. But there were too many. Vale watched from the throne, smiling. Ryan cursed. They were trapped. Then, an explosion rocked the warship. The entire room shook. The emergency alarms blared. Red warning lights flashed. Val's expression changed. "What is happening?" Ryan grinned, still catching his breath. "That, my friend, is the sound of reinforcements." Val's eyes narrowed. "What?" Zyra wiped blood from her lip, breathing heavily. "I sent a distress signal before we docked." Ryan chuckled. "Smart." Outside, ships were swarming in. The true loyalists of the Zephyrian Empire, those who still supported the Queen, had come. Val's cold mask cracked for the first time. He turned to his soldiers. "Kill them." Ryan grabbed Sarah's hand and ran. The last stand. The warship trembled. Explosions rattled the walls. Alarm sirens screamed through the corridors. Ryan Carter ran with everything he had, gripping Syra's wrist as they dashed through the smoke-filled hallways. Behind them, General Vale's forces were in pursuit. Boots thundered on the metal floor. Energy blasts whizzed past their heads. "We need to reach the hangar," Syra shouted, her voice barely cutting through the chaos. Ryan gritted his teeth. "Working on it, Your Majesty." Syra rolled her eyes. "I told you, stop calling me that." Ryan grinned despite the danger. "I call it like I see it." Another explosion rocked the ship. Ryan staggered, catching Syra before she fell. They rounded a corner, only to come face to face with a squad of heavily armed guards. Ryan skidded to a stop. "Damn it." Syra raised her blade. "No choice. We fight." Battle in the hallway. The lead soldier shouted an order. They opened fire. Ryan dived left, rolled, and fired back. 2 guards dropped instantly. Syra rushed forward. She weaved through the incoming fire, her golden blade flashing. 1 strike. A guard collapsed. A spin. Another fell. Ryan fired again. But then his weapon clicked. Out of ammo. "Of course," he muttered. A soldier lunged at him with a shock baton. Ryan barely dodged. The weapon crackled inches from his face. Ryan grabbed the soldier's arm, twisted, and slammed him into the wall. The soldier groaned and dropped. Syra kicked the last attacker into a console. Electric sparks erupted as he fell limp. The hallway fell silent. Ryan exhaled. "I swear, this is getting old." Syra smirked. "Tired already?" Ryan wiped sweat from his brow. "Nah, just wondering how many more times we'll have to fight for our lives in the next 10 minutes. Then the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Attention all forces. This is General Vale. The traitor queen and her human ally must not escape. All units converge on the hangar." Ryan sighed. "That answers that." The betrayal runs deeper. They ran again, dodging fallen debris and leaping over cracks in the floor. The Zephyrian warship was falling apart. Ryan could hear the battle outside. Loyalists, those who still supported Syra, had launched a full-scale assault. Explosions lit up the sky as starfighters clashed in the void. Ryan and Syra reached a turbolift. The door slid open and they stumbled inside. Ryan slammed the panel. "Hangar. Fast." The doors shut. The lift rocketed downward. Ryan leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "So, what's the plan when we get there?" Syra hesitated. "We take a ship and get out." Ryan narrowed his eyes. "That's not all, is it?" Syra clenched her fists. "Vale cannot live." Ryan exhaled. He had seen this before. Leaders pushed too far, betrayed by their own people. And now, she had no choice but to fight for her throne. The lift slowed. Ryan nodded. "Then let's end this. The final confrontation. General Vale awaits." The lift doors hissed open. They stepped into the hangar bay. Ryan's stomach tightened. The scene before them was a trap. Dozens of soldiers lined the platform, weapons already drawn. And standing in the center, waiting for them, was General Vale. His silver eyes glowed under the harsh hangar lights. His long black cloak billowed slightly in the wind from the force fields. Syra stepped forward. Her voice was strong. "It ends now." Vale smirked. "Yes, but not the way you think." He lifted his hand, and the hangar doors locked. Ryan cursed. No escape. Val's voice turned cold. "You think this battle matters? You think your return will save this empire? You are wrong." Syra gripped her sword. "And yet here you are, afraid of me." Val's expression flickered, just for a second. Then he moved. The duel, queen versus traitor. Vale rushed forward. Syra met him head-on. Their blades clashed in a shower of sparks. Ryan took cover as blaster fire erupted. Loyalists had breached the hangar. The final battle had begun. Ryan picked up a fallen rifle. Time to even the odds. Ryan's fight. One last stand. Ryan ducked, rolled, and fired. 3 enemy soldiers dropped. An explosion rocked the hangar. A ship had taken damage, fuel leaking. Ryan spotted a heavy cannon turret on a platform above. Perfect. He sprinted across the hangar, climbing up the wreckage. A guard tried to stop him. Ryan elbowed him in the face and kept going. He reached the turret, turned, aimed, and fired. Zyra versus Vale, the end of a traitor. Zyra's breath was sharp, her muscles burning. Vale was fast, powerful, but she was faster. She ducked under his blade, slashed his leg. Vale stumbled. She pressed forward. A flurry of precise strikes. Vale blocked, but barely. "You are weak," he snarled. Zyra's eyes blazed. "I am your queen." With a final devastating strike, she drove her blade through his chest. Vale choked. His eyes widened in shock. Then, he collapsed. The battle was over. Escape, and a new future. With Vale dead, his remaining forces surrendered. The Loyalists cheered. But Ryan, he was already moving. He jogged to Exiled, still catching his breath. "We need to go before more trouble shows up." Zyra looked at him, bloodied but victorious. "You saved me." Again. Ryan shrugged. "I was getting used to it." She smirked. "And yet, you still refuse to bow." Ryan smirked back. "Not my style." She laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Then she turned to the gathered soldiers, and with a single command, she reclaimed her throne. Victory at a cost. The battle was over. The warship was in chaos, but the fighting had stopped. Zyra had won. Her golden armor was cracked, her blade coated in the blood of traitors, but she stood tall. A queen once more. Ryan Carter, bruised and exhausted, leaned against a fallen console, catching his breath. The Loyalist forces secured the hangar. General Vale's dead body lay at Zyra's feet, his betrayal now nothing more than a stain on history. Ryan watched the soldiers kneel before Zyra. He could see the loyalty in their eyes, their belief in her. They had fought for her, died for her. And now she was truly their leader. Zyra turned to Ryan, her golden eyes locking onto his. "It is over," she said, but there was something unreadable in her voice. Ryan exhaled. Was it? A choice to make. The throne was hers again, but Ryan didn't belong here. He glanced at the nearest docking bay. A ship waited there, a way back home. Zyra seemed to read his thoughts. She took a step closer. "You are free to leave," she said softly. "You were never meant to be a part of this war." Ryan gave her a tired smile. "Yeah, well, I tend to fall into trouble like this." Zyra studied him, her expression unreadable. "And what will you do now, Captain Carter?" Ryan hesitated. This was the moment. Stay or leave. He looked around the battlefield. The cost of this war was etched into the faces of every soldier. People had died for this moment. He had fought, bled, and almost died. For what? For a queen who wasn't even human. For a cause that had nothing to do with Earth. He should walk away. He should go home. But then, a warning light blinked on a nearby console. Ryan frowned. "What's that?" One of the Loyalist officers checked the display. His face turned pale. Ryan's gut twisted. "Talk to me, soldier," he said. The officer's voice was shaky. "Something is approaching. A fleet. Not ours." The room went silent. The real enemy reveals itself. Zyra stepped forward. "Show me." The officer hesitated before pulling up the data. A holographic projection filled the air. Ryan's stomach dropped. Massive ships. Dozens of them. They weren't Safarian. They weren't human. They were something else. Ryan swore under his breath. "Tell me that's not what I think it is." Syra's expression turned to stone. It is. Ryan exhaled sharply. The real war wasn't over. A darker truth. Syra turned to her officers. Prepare the fleet. We fight. The soldiers saluted and rushed into action. Ryan watched the ships in the hologram, his mind racing. This wasn't some political dispute. This wasn't just an empire in turmoil. This was an invasion. Syra met Ryan's gaze. You asked me what I carry inside me. Ryan nodded. Yeah, you said it was something that could save your people. She nodded slowly. Not just my people. Yours too. Ryan's blood ran cold. What do you mean? Syra took a deep breath. The assassins, the traitors, they weren't just fighting to stop a peace treaty. They wanted me dead because of what I know. Ryan's pulse quickened. And what do you know? Syra's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of the universe. The ones coming. They are not from this galaxy. Ryan stared at her. What? Syra turned back to the hologram. They are called the Velex Dominion. And they do not conquer. They erase. Ryan felt a chill creep down his spine. How long until they get here? Syra's expression was grim. 3 days. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. He had just survived one war, only to land in another. 3 days. Not a lot of time to decide. Not a lot of time to prepare. Syra stepped toward him. You should leave, Ryan. You have no stake in this war. Ryan let out a breathless laugh. Yeah, you've been saying that since we met. She nodded. And yet you stayed. Ryan smirked. Yeah, I have a habit of making bad decisions. Syra tilted her head. Or the right ones. Ryan looked at the hologram again. The incoming fleet. The overwhelming enemy. He could leave. He could walk away. Find a ship back to Earth. Pretend this wasn't his fight. But deep down, he already knew. He wasn't going anywhere. He sighed. All right, Queen. Looks like I'm sticking around. Syra's lips curled into the faintest smile. I was hoping you would say that. Ryan smirked. Yeah. Now tell me, how the hell are we supposed to fight an enemy that erases civilizations? Syra's expression hardened. We find a way. Final scene. The war begins. Across the void, in the silent darkness of space, the Velex Dominion fleet approached. Their ships were colossal, sleek, and unnatural. Inside the command vessel, a dark figure sat on a throne of black metal. Its eyes glowed a sickly blue. It had no face, only a mask. It turned to its second in command. A mechanical voice whispered through the air. The Queen still lives. A pause. Then, a decision. Burn her world. The fleet moved forward, and the final war had begun.